Sakal Gunaarnavasya Vande Guru Sri Charanarabindam.
We require to hear about the method of relishing the Srimad Bhagavatam, the most elevated text on the science of God consciousness, the matured and ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic wisdom. The Sanskrit word rasa means juice, just like the juice of an orange or a mango. And the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam requests that you kindly try to taste the rasa or juice of the fruit of the Bhagavatam. Why? Why shall I taste the juice of the fruit of the Bhagavatam? Because it is the ripened fruit of the Vedic desire tree. As a desire tree, whatever you want, you can have from the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. It is so complete that whether you want to enjoy in this material world or you want to enjoy spiritual life, both kinds of knowledge are there. If you follow the Vedic principles, then you will be happy. This is like the codes of the state. If the citizens obey, then they will be happy. There will be no criminal trespassing, and they will enjoy life. The state does not come to you for nothing, just to trouble you. But if you live according to the state law, there is no question of unhappiness. Similarly, this conditioned soul, the living entity, has come here to this material world for enjoyment and for material happiness. And the Vedas are the guidance. All right, enjoy, but you enjoy according to these principles. That is called Veda. Therefore, everything is there. Just as we sometimes perform a marriage ceremony in the temple. What is this marriage ceremony? It is the combination of man and woman, boy and girl. They are already there. They are living like friends. So what is the use of this marriage ceremony? It is Vedic. The Vedas account for living together, sex life, but under some special regulations, so that you may be happy. The ultimate end is to become happy. If you follow the Vedic rules and restrictions, that will not mean that you will be kept from eating, or not allowed to sleep, or not allowed to defend, or even to have sex life. It is not like that. Your bodily necessities are the same as those of the animals. The animals also eat, they also sleep, they also mate and defend, so we require these things also. But the Vedas prescribe some regulations. You act in this way, so that you will not be unhappy. If you follow the regulation, ultimately the result will be that you will be free from the material entanglement. This material life is not meant for the spirit soul. It is simply a misunderstanding that you want to enjoy this material life. But Krishna, the Supreme Lord, gives us specific orders so that we can enjoy in such a way that at the end we will understand that this is not our proper life. Our proper life is spiritual. This human form of life is perfected as soon as we come to the understanding of spiritual existence, that I am Brahman. Otherwise, if I do not take care of my spiritual life, then the result is that I must live as the cats and dogs do. There is every possibility that my next life will be an animal life. And if, by chance, or by a freak of nature, I get into animal life, then millions and millions of years will be required before again coming to this human form of life. So the human form of life is meant for self-realization, and the Vedas are the direction. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that Krishna says that to study or to follow the rules and regulations of the Vedas actually means to come to the understanding of Krsna consciousness. That is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam also. So the Vedas give you the chance to gradually come to the point of understanding Krishna after many, many births. But the Bhagavatam is called the essence of life, the ripened fruit of the Vedas. Because the Bhagavatam gives you, directly, what is needed in your life. The Vedas are divided into 4, Sama, Ug, Athava, and Yajur. Then these are explained by the Puranas, of which there are 18. Then these are still further explained by the Upanishads, of which there are 108. The Upanishads are summarized in the Vedanta Sutra, and the Vedanta Sutra is still again explained by the Srimad Bhagavatam, by the same author. This is the process. So the Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. Naimisharanya is a very famous and sacred forest in northern India where all the rishis, the sages, generally go to aid their spiritual advancement of life. This Srimad Bhagavatam was first discussed in this age, in that forest. When it was discussed, the great saint Suta Goswami was asked by his audience, now that Krishna has gone back to his abode, with whom is transcendental knowledge, now resting. This question was raised. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna himself, and it contains all descriptions of Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Now, this inquiry was made, where can you get spiritual knowledge now that Krishna is gone? The answer was that Krishna, having departed, has left us, the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the representation, the sound representation of Krishna. The Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna as the Gita is not different from Krishna. They are absolute. Krishna and Krishna's sound vibration are not different. Krishna and Krishna's name are also not different. And Krishna's form, again, are not different. This is absolute. It requires realization. This Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are sound incarnations of Krishna. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also the literary incarnation of Krishna, and it is the fruit of Vedic knowledge. You may have experience that there is a bird which is called a parrot. The parrot's body is green, and his beak is red. The specific qualification of the parrot is that whatever you say, he can imitate. That parrot bird is touching the ripened fruit, and, naturally, if the fruit is ripened on the tree, it becomes very tasteful. Again, if the fruit is tasted by the parrot, it becomes still more tasteful. That is nature's way. So here it is said that this Srimad Bhagavatam is just like the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge, and at the same time it is touched by Shukadeva Goswami, Suta's spiritual master. Shuka means parrot in Sanskrit. This Srimad Bhagavatam was first explained by Shukadeva Goswami, though the author is his father, Vyasa. Shukadeva was only 16 years old when he was taught the Bhagavatam, and he was illumined. He was already liberated in the impersonal concept of the Absolute, but after hearing the Bhagavatam from his father, he became attracted by the pastimes of Krishna, and he became a preacher of the Bhagavatam. First, he explained it before Maharaj Parikshit, the great king. A short history of Maharaja Parikshit is that he was a very pious king, but unfortunately, by some of his acts, he was cursed by a Brahmana boy to die within 7 days. In those days, if a Brahmana should curse someone, it would come true. They had the power to curse or give benediction. So Parikshit understood that within a week he would have to die, and he prepared himself. He gave up his kingdom, entrusting it to his son, Maharaja Janamejaya, and he detached himself from the family and sat down on the banks of the Ganges, near Delhi. It was not exactly the Ganges, it was actually the Yamuna. There, because he was a great emperor, many learned sages came. Parikshit now inquired from all the great sages present there, "What is my duty? I am going to die within 7 days. Now what is my duty? You are all learned sages, please, just prescribe for me." So someone said to practice yoga. Some said to practice jhana, the cultivation of knowledge. There were different opinions. But at that time, Shukadeva Goswami entered the forest, and although Shukadeva was only 16, he was so learned and reputed that all the old sages, including his father, Vyasadeva, stood up to show him respect. He was so learned. So when he appeared, it was agreed, "Here is Shukadeva Goswami. Let him decide what to do. We appoint him as our representative." Shukadeva Goswami was thus authorized to speak, and he was asked, "What is my duty? I am very fortunate that you have come in this momentous hour. Kindly tell me, what is my duty?" Shukadeva Goswami said, "All right, I shall explain to you the Srimad Bhagavatam." Then everyone present agreed. As the Bhagavatam was first spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, it is therefore mentioned that as the parrot touches ripened fruit, and it becomes even sweeter. So this Srimad Bhagavatam, because it was touched first by Shukadeva Goswami, has become still more tasteful. The idea is that any Vedic literature, especially the Bhagavatam or the Gita, should be learned as spoken by a realized soul. Especially this literature, which is called Vaishnava literature, should not be heard from a person who is not a devotee. This point I have several times stressed. Those who are non-devotees, those who are mental speculationists, those who are fruitive workers, those who are meditators, or mystic yogis, cannot explain. the science of God. This is especially mentioned also by Sanatana Goswami, another great saint. Those who are not in devotional service, non-godly, those who have no faith in God, such persons should not be allowed to speak on the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, or any literature which is in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So it is not that anybody can speak the Bhagavatam or the Gita, and we will have to hear it. No, Sanatana Goswami especially prohibits us. We should not hear of the Supreme Lord from one who is not purified. One may ask, how can you taint the words of Krishna, which are naturally transcendentally pure? What is the harm if we hear from the non-devotee? This question may be raised. The example given here is that milk is very nice and nutritious, but as soon as it is touched by a serpent, it becomes poison immediately. The serpent is very envious. He bites and puts to death, immediately, unnecessarily, and therefore is considered the cruelest animal amongst the living entities. In the Shastras, non-violence is recommended, as in every scripture, but the serpent and the scorpion are allowed to be killed. You cannot say that milk is so nutritious and we can drink. What is the harm if it is touched by serpents? No, the result will be death. One should not hear, at least the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, from those who are not devotees of the Lord, who have no realization of God, and who are envious of him. Their touch renders it poison. The words of the Lord are always sublime, but as soon as they are touched by the serpent-like non-devotee, one should be very careful about hearing. In the Bhagavatam it is indicated that as soon as Shukadev touched it, it became delicious. This is the distinction. Basically, it is the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge, but at the same time it has been touched by Shukadeva Goswami. The Lord is the supreme object of yoga and the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. He reveals himself only to his devotees, and by the mercy of his devotees, all can relish his intimate association.